One of the things about living on the farm is that life does have a very routine type of schedule, and Wednesday mornings is the day of the week that I clean the barn, and this is the barn that the ewes are in. So I'll feed the sheep, and then I lock the ewes out of the barn, get the tractor, get all the dry stuff off the floor first, and then I'll select a section of the barn that I want to work on peeling up the layers of manure that were that accumulated over the winter. So in the winter months when the snow's really deep, I can't really get the tractor in there without risk of it getting stuck. So it does tend to pile up. So I'm working on chipping away at that, and hopefully by the time lambing starts, I'll have the whole floor pretty much down to the stone, nice and dry and ready for lambing season. And I don't clean the whole barn during lambing because I have all the jugs up and stuff, the lambing jugs. And so it's important for me that I get it cleaned out now. So, thought I would take you through that, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's get to work. It's a little bit windy out here, but one thing I forgot to mention is I am going to be using this mask when I clean out the barn. I've started to get a little bit of congestion in my chest from either the hay or the dust. So I use this when I'm cleaning the barn, and I actually wear a COVID mask just when I'm doing chores on a normal basis. So just thought I'd point that out. Also, I'm going to be wearing these mittens initially because it's cold out. It's like 35, a little bit windy. So I'm going to wear these at first, and then as my hands get hot, which they will, I'll go ahead and put on the work gloves so I don't get blisters from the pitchfork and the shovel and stuff. All right, let's really get to work now. I'm going to get him some hay. So I'm still getting hay out of the other barn. We're going to head over there right now. And there's no snow on the ground, so I'm using my wheels. It's kind of dark in here, but you can see we're doing pretty good with hay. I feel like I'm overfeeding them. There's usually leftover hay in the pasture or in the paddocks and stuff. So that's good. I'm not sure if I've ever talked about this tool before, but this has changed my life. I have two of them. I use it for all sorts of stuff. It's great for grabbing the hay and pulling it down. And it's also good for if I'm climbing up there to give me a good grab for a good foothold. I usually get down a couple bales in the morning so that I have them down for the evening feed. it's a full bale for the girls in the morning, and then 2 large flakes for the ram lambs, because I have 7 over there, and 1 large flake for the adult rams. There's 4 of them. And these are packed pretty good, so there's quite a lot of hay in here. This is easily 10 pounds of hay right here. Snowing. What you doing all your wool? Fed. Feels like hail. One of the nice things about the colder temperatures is that the ground is hard, it's not as muddy. I like that better for the sheep. Wool from Rooin. Local. What the heck? It's hailing outside. The sheep don't seem to mind, so I'm gonna lock them out. It's gonna take me an hour or so to get the loose bits out. So we're gonna get started with that. So that's it for the loose dry bits. Now my goal is there's a little hump right here in the center of the barn, and I wanna get that with the fork. A little different work. Still needs the mask, and this time I need the mask because the fumes that come up from the layers is very potent. So I like to use the mask for that. And then we'll be done. And I only pick a small section of the floor to peel up because it's really hard work. I know my limitations, and eventually it'll get done. I do it like in little, bite-sized chunks, so it's more manageable. As long as I do it once a week, it'll be cleared up by lambing. Okay, so the last strip has been removed. And I'm going to call it a day. I don't know if I necessarily got a 6x6 foot, but I haven't taken the mask off now. I can smell just the fumes. So now I just have to fill up the water buckets, and then I can let the sheep in, and that's my reward. Get some love time with the sheep when I'm done with this job on Wednesdays. Hello. Hello. Paused it for me. I think she thought it was too much of a show. I'm gonna take a shower. The best part, isn't it? Nope. Hey, nope. All right, ladies, we got a nice clean barn, some clean water. You get a picture. Okay. Alright, I gotta go. There's stuff I gotta do. I love you too. I love you too so much. Okay, have a good day. Hi, everybody. I'm here with Mark Meurer, and he is the president of the Polypay Breed Association. And I'm really excited to be able to bring him onto the channel today to talk about the Polypay breed and his experience with the breed and with sheep farming. So, hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Jen, for having me. Appreciate it very, very much.
Awesome. So the first question I have is, can you just talk about the Polypay breed, the origin, and what sets them apart from other breeds?
Sure, absolutely. Well, the Polypay breed is a true American breed. We're a breed that started back in the 1960s, was developed out in the state of Idaho, kind of out of necessity. A lot of sheep producers out west were searching for some combinations of breeds that would produce a genetically superior sheep that was really focused on prolificacy, numbers of lambs, milking ability, ability to breed out of season or accelerate lamb, and be able to withstand many different types of environments or production systems. So we're a breed that's been around, again, a true American breed since the 1960s, and have just continually grown throughout the years as the breed continues to spread across the country. We're now found all across the country, from the mountain ranges of the West to farm flocks here in the Midwest to what I like to call the deep grass states of New York and Virginia, and where you've got your beautiful green pastures. So our breed has over the years continued to grow, expand, and become very popular in the commercial sheep industry.
So interesting. So when you talk about production and being prolific, that's specifically to lambing, right? You're not really focusing on a significant wool output or large carcasses for meat. It's mostly about producing lambs frequently, right?
Right. The origin of the breed was very, very focused on maternal characteristics. So Polypays throughout their history have been known for large drop numbers. I mean, it's not unusual to have twins, triplets, and quads with Polypays. They were really selected for their ability to drop a lot of lambs, right? And also to be able to milk extremely good. And you'll find, if anybody's involved with or have been around the Polypay breed, you'll find that Polypay females are exceptional. I mean, extremely good mothers, extremely heavy milking ewes, and then again with multiple births. The origin of the breed was really, really focused at first on maternal characteristics.
Okay. All right. So they can lamb more than once a year. Is that what you said?
Yeah, exactly. The Polypay breed, the four breeds, the composite breed that we started out with, the four breeds that we originally started with were Rambouillet, Targhee, Finn sheep, and Dorset, right? So we tried to find back in the early days of in the development of the breed, they tried to find traits from all these different breeds that they could bring together to create this really prolific, hardy female that could survive in a lot of different environments. You got the prolificacy from the Finn sheep, you got carcass, out of season breeding ability from the Dorsets, you got hardiness from the Targhees, you got wool quality, and the ability to withstand harsh environments from the Rambouillet as well. And you put all those breeds together, and the Polypay breed was derived from those breeds for those reasons.
So how many times a year do you guys lamb?
We just lamb once a year. We lamb. Our main focus at our operation is we breed in April and May. So we breed out of season, and our focus has always been producing naturally conceived fall lambs. So that's kind of been our big market at our place, has been able to produce lambs that are born in the fall, because there's becoming more and more interest in being able to breed sheep out of season and actually have lambs born at different times of the year to hit different markets. So different operations, the fall lambs work so well in. So that's been our main focus, is naturally conceived fall lambs. So we don't use at our operation any seeders or any artificial methods whatsoever to get our sheep to breed in the spring. It's all been done through natural selection throughout the past 20 years. So yeah, so we just lamb once a year, and part of that's because I also have an off-farm job too. So I don't have as much time as I would like sometimes to put into accelerated lambing or lambing more than once a year. So our main focus has been lambing in September, October, and November.
Okay. So back to just the breed in general. The gestation period with Shetlands, we say it's 147 days on average. What's the gestation period for the Polypays?
5 months.
5 months?
Yeah.
So it's about the same.
About the same. Yeah.
And is that considered fast in the, because I read in somewhere that the gestation period is faster with the Polypay. Is that?
Yeah. Good question. I don't know for sure how much faster it would be. I know, Polypays are traditionally known to be sheep that reach puberty in an early age too, though. So, it could be that, that they are mature at a younger age, and maybe, maybe that has something to do with that. I don't know, but Polypays do tend to mature quickly.
Okay. All right, so then the other question I have is, I did spend some time on your website, and I have to say it was the breed website was, well, yours is also very nice, but on the breed website, it's really informative. There's a lot of really good information, and I am going to provide a link both to your website as well as your breed association in the comment section of this video. But I just wanted to ask you about what your standards are for conformation, or just what your breed standard is, if you could describe that in terms of what a Polypay looks like. Sure. Talk about that a little bit.
Yep, we are considered kind of a dual purpose wool breed. So, we are a white sheep, white faced breed of sheep. Conformation is very important to all of us in the breed. Strong tops, good structure, bone structure, not a lot of wool on the face, cleaner faces, but still, we still, do carry some wool on the face, but a little bit cleaner faces, no black. I think I have to go back and read the breed standard, but nothing bigger than the size of a quarter, I think, nickel or a quarter on a Polypay. So traditionally try to keep them as white as we can and keep the color out of them. Okay. I mean, if you were to look at could you look at a Polypay and know it's a Polypay? What would you be looking at? I guess when I try to describe what a Polypay looks like to people who maybe have not seen them before, I think they look very similar to a Dorset. Okay. Maybe Rambouillet, somewhere in between those two. So again, moderate frame sheep with white faces. What's their usually their like average weight as adults they'll use? Yeah, well, it kind of varies between farms, but I would say probably the average weight on most ewes in the Polypay breed are between 150 to probably 180 to 200 pounds on the bigger end. Rams probably around 300 to 350. So I would consider some moderate framed breed of sheep. Okay. The Rambouillet is kind of a bigger sheep, isn't it? It is, yeah. But you have to remember too, within the Polypay breed is a fin sheep, which tends to be a smaller sheep, right? So it all kind of averages out. So I would consider a Polypay sheep to be, when compared to most sheep, probably more in the moderate framed size. Okay. All right, so this is a question I wanted to ask you, and this kind of it's informed on with my breeding experience with Shetlands, with the fact that the Shetlands came to North America. There were 30 in this importation that came over from Shetland Islands, and the Shetlanders at that time were crossing their Shetlands with Scottish Blackface and Cheviot in order to get larger frames and bigger fleeces to make more money, but they were still considering them as Shetlands. So when they brought those over here, they all looked like a Shetland, right? So they were correct phenotypically, but then as they would breed, you would see lambs with traits that were more like the Cheviot or the Scottish Blackface. And there's other breeds scattered in there, but those are the two main ones. So we're very conscious of that. And, our farm, we're working towards the more pure type Shetland as it's described in the, centuries old standard. And when we see those traits, outlier traits in our sheep, we select out, we call those or whatever. So I was interested when I was reading this, that in the 60s, there were the 4 breeds and of equal proportion to make up a Polypay. And my question is, do you ever see an expression of any one of those 4 breeds taking over so that it doesn't look like a Polypay any longer, or doesn't behave like a Polypay and maybe behaves more as one of those breeds? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that does make sense. It makes sense, and it's a really interesting question. I would say when you look across breeds across the United States, Polypay breeders that are involved in our breed nationally, Polypay sheep pretty much are very consistent. I mean, they all pretty much look the same. There are some differences, though. I mean, there are some slight differences we have seen because so many of our breeders are involved in genetic testing, performance testing, because we are a true commercial breed. We're not a show ring breed of sheep. We are really a breed that has, from its beginning, focused on commercial sheep production. That's what we do as Polypay breeders. Our market is not show ring people; it's commercial lamb producers across the country. So because we're so heavily involved in genetic testing, many of our members are part of the National Sheep Improvement Program, the NSIP program, where we're submitting genetic data and generating estimated breeding values on our sheep. Throughout the years, I think it's a known fact that if you're a breeder that is selected for higher maternal traits on the NSIP system, are really focused on high maternal traits, you might see a little more of the fin sheep influence come out in your flock, where maybe the sheep are a little smaller frame, maybe a little finer in their bone structure, more like a fin sheep, but that's where you're getting those extremely high maternal numbers, right, is from that fin sheep influence. So you might see a little bit of that in some flocks where they've really focused on those high multiple birth numbers and things like that. Now in our flock, I can go back to and talk to you a little bit about what we do. We've kind of done more of a dual purpose look at things. So I look very close, not only at the maternal traits, but I'm very much in tune with growth rate on our sheep. I like sheep that have body capacity, muscle, bone, volume, dimension, so our sheep probably, because that's what I've selected for heavily over the past 20 years, our sheep probably look more like a Dorset. A more dual purpose looking breed of sheep, but you're right. That's a really great question. I would say you will see maybe some influences in some flocks where they've really selected heavily for those maternal traits, where you might see a little more of the fin sheep influence start to exhibit itself. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just just an observation throughout the years that you may see within Polypay flocks.
So I suppose that if you really understand what the Polypay breed is and what those contributions are from the four, and you really, if you're a breeder and you understand all of those inputs and you're sensitive to that and you're selecting for all of them, so if you have a sheep that exhibits all those traits from those four breeds, so that would probably be the way that you could make sure that you're breeding for a typical Polypay, right? Would you?
Exactly. Yep. Exactly right. So, and that's pretty much how most Polypay breeders across the country approach things. Our focus again is, and I'm very, very proud of our membership, is the fact that we have really focused on commercial traits. That's what we do as breeders in the Polypay breed. Again, nothing against the show ring. I love the show ring. I grew up in the show ring. I've judged livestock. I have no problem with the show ring whatsoever. But the Polypay breed is really stuck to not following fads or trends, but just really focusing on commercial traits that actually put money in sheep producers' pockets, so, and those four breeds that we go back to at the beginning were breeds that we felt economically made the most sense to produce the type of sheep that will eventually put money and make economic sense to a commercial sheep producer.
Yeah. So this, the reason I'm doing this interview is because, my guild is doing a wool or a breed study on the wool of sheep. And you and I have talked already, you really are more focused, you just said, on the commercial side. There is an interview I'm going to be doing in a couple of weeks with another one of your breeders in your organization, and she's focused a little more on the wool. So we're going to cover that in her interview, and we're not going to talk about that. So if any of you guys are watching this wondering, why I'm not covering that, it's really more about what makes this breed what they are, what makes this breed different from all the others. And that's the goal here for this interview. So what is the biggest challenge right now for the Polypay breed? What would you say is the thing you're keeping you up at night as the breeder?
This is the biggest challenge we have as Polypay breeders right now, and this is a good challenge, is demand for our genetics right now is so high that we simply cannot produce enough, especially females, ewe lambs, for commercial producers as needed right now. Obviously, if you're in the sheep business, the sheep market has been extremely good. We're seeing young people getting into the commercial sheep business. which is exciting. Demand for our sheep across the country is as high as I've ever seen it in 20 years, because people are trying to rebuild flocks, start flocks, really focused on the maternal traits, where they really have a sound, solid maternal foundation in their flocks. And Polypay genetics have kind of risen to the top of the sheep industry right now in terms of producing a genetically superior sheep that can work in many different environments, from confinement to mountain ranges to pastures to farm flocks. Our sheep work in all those environments, and because of that, and with the markets the way it's been, people have money to spend on good genetics now, and we've just seen an extremely high demand for our genetics right now. And so that's a good problem to have, but I wish we could produce more for the demand that we have for Polypay genetics right now.
How many active breeders are in your organization?
Oh goodness,
Just roughly.
Roughly, I would say 150, maybe more. I'd have to go back and look. I haven't looked at the number lately, but yeah, we're not, obviously not the largest breed of sheep in the country in terms of registrations and that type of thing. But we are, I would say, probably when you look at the commercial sheep industry, probably one of the top 1, 2, or 3 breeds that probably have the most influence within the commercial sheep industry right now. So very sought after breed of sheep for commercial producers.
Right. So what's an average flock size then, just to get a size?
Average flock size of actual breeders or the commercial people that we work with?
The Polypay breeder community.
Yeah. That's another, it's so diverse, here in Illinois where I live, we run 35 ewes because that's all the grass we have. We've got enough pasture grass here in the Midwest to maintain about 35 ewes, and that's it. However, we have, breeders that have 1,000 ewes. So it just kind of depends on your environment, where you're at, and how much grass you've got available for your flock. So it just varies in size, which one of the unique things about the Polypay breed is you've got farm flocks, big range flocks out west, confinement flocks here in the Midwest now too, all producing genetics. So we have many different diverse backgrounds in terms of production systems for our genetics.
So who is your customer? Can you give me a profile of who you sell to?
Yep. Customers, in our case, it could be range producers in Utah, that are looking for sheep that can breed out of season. They're looking for sheep that are hardy, maternal, can handle, the mountain environments. Midwest has become a huge market for Polypay genetics, or Midwestern flocks, where again, they're looking for multiple births, ability to breed out of season, work in many different production systems. From confinement to pasture to dry lot to east. We're seeing a huge market now for Polypay sheep out east, where they're looking for maternal sheep that they can cross to make really good 80 to 90 pound market lambs for ethnic markets and restaurant trade and things like that. So we're seeing a growing number of people using Polypay genetics in the eastern United States now as well.
So the most of your customers are breeders as well. You're not selling it to market. You're from your flock, right?
Exactly. So our focus at our farm at Big Prairie Polypays is to focus on producing a really genetically superior sheep that is extremely good from a structure and phenotype standpoint. And our market is selling to commercial producers around the country that are trying to improve their flocks by implementing our genetics into their flocks to try to improve the overall economic value of their sheep flocks as well. So
I gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. All right. So I guess the last question I've got for you is, can you just talk a little bit about your journey? What got you into sheep, and, what's your story?
Yeah, so my story is I grew up on a diversified grain and livestock farm here in Illinois. So I've been around livestock my whole life, grown up mostly around hogs, though. We were in the purebred hog business growing up. So everything I really learned about livestock selection and learned about livestock production, I learned in the hog business. Oh. My grandfather also raised sheep when I was growing up. And I always enjoyed working with him and being around him with the sheep. So I think when I got to my own farm, got my own place set up, it was, we had some pasture. It made sense that maybe sheep would be the right fit for the operation that we were moving to. So we started searching around, and through our local FFA advisor at our local high school, he suggested that we buy some Polypay genetics from a friend of his And at that time, if you would have asked me what a Polypay was, I would have been clueless. I would have had no idea, because I wasn't really that familiar with the Polypay breed. But I am so thankful looking back on it now that Polypays were the breed that we started with and have stayed with, because of the easy keeping nature of the sheep, the extremely good mothering ability of the sheep. For somebody who came from a hog background and getting into the sheep business, they were the perfect breed of sheep for us because they took care of themselves, right? They weren't high maintenance sheep, which was good. So we started with a very small flock and have grown it. We've had up to 70 ewes. We're back down in the 30 to 40 range now, but that was kind of our start, and very, very pleased that we chose Polypays as the breed of choice at our operation. So, and we've grown our business over the years to where we've now sold sheep to over 25 different states. So we feel pretty successful in producing good genetics for sheep producers all across the country in many different environments and production systems, and have a really wonderful customer base of great sheep producers that are really focused on commercial production across the United States.
Yeah. Nice. So I'm just thinking back to your comment that you breed in the spring for fall lambs because your market, that's what they're looking for. So the commercial producers are looking for fall lambs, and that you're probably not moving those lambs until they're 12 weeks old or something like that. I mean, how does that, what's that?
Well, actually, yeah, so if we lamb in September, October, November, we usually don't start sending those ram lambs or those ewe lambs out to producers until May or June. So we raise them all through the winter. We keep our lambs on our ewes probably longer than most people. I don't wean until 90 to 100 days. Yeah, I mean, those lambs are on their mom, throughout the winter, and they do so good. Here in the Midwest, they do so good on their moms through the winter. Of course, we're creep feeding as well, and they have access to good quality alfalfa hay too. So that's really worked well for us. And then those lambs grow so nice through the winter into the spring, and then we start sending those sheep out to the different customers across the country. Usually in May and June is when we'll start sending genetics out to go to work for people. So but the key there, people, you can take a fall-born ram lamb, he's ready to breed in the summer. So it really works out good. You can get a good genetically superior ram lamb and put him to work as soon as you get him in the summer or early fall. And the nice thing too is because we've selected for naturally conceiving fall lambs, if you do want to accelerate lamb or lamb in the fall, these sheep that we've produced over the past 20 years, genetically, that's what we've selected for. So you can feel pretty comfortable that when you get one of our rams or our ewe lambs, that they have the genetic potential to lamb out a season, especially in the fall.
So interesting, so different from what we're doing.
I'll tell you what, it's so much nicer to go to the lambing barn in October than it is in January. Really is, I don't mind dragging myself out of bed at midnight, on October 12th versus doing that on January 12th. There's a big difference, so that's why we've always enjoyed lambing in the fall, because the weather is so much nicer and those lambs grow so good through the winter then. So
it's a nice start for them too, to be in a warmer environment, even though you're breeding for all sorts of climates and environments and stuff. Still, it's really nice conditions for the babies.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, this was really interesting. I did not expect to learn the stuff that I did. My biggest question was about the fallout or outliers, but that explanation for how you can breed for the correct polypay really makes a lot of sense to me. So
yeah.
So great. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about or say about?
I'll tell you, if people want to see what we do, we're on Facebook, obviously, at Big Prairie Polypays. You can check us out on Facebook, and then we do have a website as well, www.bigprairiepolypays.com too, if you want to see kind of how we've designed our sheep. We're very proud of the phenotype of our sheep, and then the genetic ability of our sheep in combination. We try to kind of be that intersection, a good phenotype, really solid structure and well-designed sheep, and then genetic testing as well. So if you want to see what we do, and then if anybody ever has questions, my gosh, just feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, you got right back to me, so that was great. I think probably my audience is going to want to know, about fleeces and stuff, right? They're going to ask me, does Mark sell his wool to hand spinners? And what do you do? Like, what is your, now that I think
Yeah,
about
so on the wool side, we do shear twice a year, and we do our sheep do shear well. I mean, they shear heavy fleeces. Our shearer always comments on the quality of our wool, that it's very good quality. So we actually market through a local wool company here in Illinois. They take all of our wool, so we shear twice a year, and all of our wool goes to a company called Gronewald Wool here in Forreston, Illinois, which is just not too far away from us. We're very fortunate to have a wool company not far away and sheep
They're a
shears in
mill?
the neighborhood. What's that?
Is that a mill?
They just collect, they just are kind of a wool buyer.
Like a broker? Okay.
Yeah, they're a broker. I think most of their wool eventually ends up in China, is where I think it goes. But we're fortunate to have them close, and fortunate too to have somebody that shears sheep in the neighborhood as well, because that's not the easiest thing to find either nowadays. Is somebody who shears sheep. We shear before we before we breed. Obviously, we'll be shearing here in the next couple of weeks because we're going to turn rams in probably by the end of April, and then we'll go ahead and shear those sheep again when we bring them home off of pasture in September, and before we start lambing again. So we'll
For sanitary.
yeah, we just like to get the wool off of them for those reasons. Of course, going through the summer, it keeps them cooler, and then going into the winter, believe it or not, it keeps them, if you're in the wool, been around sheep and wool, it keeps them drier, in the winter too, having all that wool off of them, and more comfortable through the winter too. So, but we really, because we shear twice a year, we don't really ever see a super long length on the wool because we do it twice a year. But, our ewes on average, I would say probably shear, 10, 12 pounds a year. Somewhere in there. I don't know if that's good or bad or otherwise.
There's no, it doesn't, that's not something that there's no, it's not really a thing with hand spinners in terms of the weight of the fleece. It's more about that staple dimension. So would you say it's more like 1.5 if you're shearing twice a year, which is still fine? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, wool quality on Polypays has always traditionally been very good because there are some wool breeds in our background, so the Polypay has really good wool quality. And you'll get to talk to to Ann Salmons about this because she's heavily involved in spinning and wool quality, and she'll be able to fill you in more on this. But as I kind of told you earlier, because around here when we shear, we just assume that we're not going to make money on our wool. I've never, believe it or not, made a dime selling wool. It just doesn't happen around here. So obviously when you're not making money at wool, that doesn't become, a primary focus of your selection on your sheep, because it just economically, isn't doing anything for your pocketbook, so. But that being said, Polypays traditionally have had very good wool, and that goes back to the fact that they were originally designed out in the Western ranges where wool is very important, so the Polypays were designed with that in mind as well. So
interesting. Very cool. All right. Well, I really appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun. Enjoyed getting to know more about the breed and talk to you for a little bit. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and I really enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing the show. And if you need anything else, let me know. And if any of your viewers have any questions, just tell them to let me know, and I'll be more than happy to answer their questions.
All right, sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.